So when Gay asked me to participate here, she sent me a couple of emails and then sent me some questions, a series of questions for me to, in my subjective way, to kind of think about and try and convey to you here tonight. So really, this part of it is less statistical and more of just my experience. I don't know if many of you know, but my family moved here in the mid-80s. I left and went to college for a few years and then came back and have lived here continuously since '94. So I've seen a lot of growth. I've seen a lot of up cycles. I've seen down cycles in Mesquite. So I started thinking about up cycles and really some commonalities between some of them. And that's really what I'm going to hit on here with these next few slides. It really is a crystal ball. Take it for what it's worth. This is just my experience working in the finance and real estate industry since the mid-90s. Go ahead. So the questions she gave me to consider were these three. And then my thought, I'm going to give you my thoughts. Go ahead. Each one of those questions will appear again. Hit them. Bring them in. So foremost consideration as I thought about this, bring the third one up too. The three things that came to my mind when Mesquite hit its highest growth cycles, some of them which we can control, some of which we can't. There was always a good national economy when Mesquite really hit, in terms of residential real estate, when Mesquite really hit its stride and did well. During the 1990s, our population grew from 1,871 people to nearly 10,000, 9,300 people. Okay? So that was tremendous growth during the 90s. How many of you remember the 90s? Other than, I think, Mark raised his hand. He was here. But during the 90s, other than there was a little recession in like 91, 92 time frame, but the rest of that decade really represents an astounding period of time, fairly long-term period of time, of high economic growth in the United States. Well, Mesquite obviously benefited from that. Then again, we think about from 04 to 07, when obviously the economy was red hot as well. And there were I want you to think about this. There were 1,800 building permits, new homes constructed, and sold in about 48 months. That represents 20% of all the housing in Mesquite, all the housing types. Mesquite's a place where people have been living for over 100 years. 20% of the housing is here from that 48-month period of time. There was a lot of growth that went on during that period of time. So there was a good national economy. I think there's a correlation there, obviously. Good local Nevada economy from early 1995. So from the mid-90s through the beginning of the last decade, Nevada's unemployment figures never exceeded 6%. They were always under 6%. I'm trying to think back to my economics class in college, and I think my economics professors. What's that? Real unemployment. 4% of people are employed. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what he said. He said between 4 and 5% of all of your working force don't want to work. So anytime you can start approaching 5%, you're approaching almost 100% of everybody that really wants a job is working, and your economy is really very, very efficient. So if you think about it, during the 90s, when we had all this growth, our local Nevada economy was doing amazing. And then from 04 through 07, it dipped down at around 5% and hovered at 5%. So it didn't even approach 6. So it was even better in terms of unemployment during that time period. And in Mesquite from 1991, maybe 1990, I'm trying to remember when the Virgin River was first constructed, but 1990, around 90. So really that should be 1990. So during that 10-year period of time in Mesquite, 4 new casino and resorts and around 3,000 hotel rooms, I think give or take, were constructed. So that obviously had a huge impact. So things were good in the national economy, things were good in the Nevada and local economy, and the third thing, land was available for building. Mesquite Lands Act of 1986 happened, and the city acquired land from the BLM in, I think, 88, 89 time period, part of which went to Mesquite Vistas and to some of the casinos and so forth that were built there. And then large areas were acquired again in 2003. There was an amendment to the Lands Act in 2001 that passed Congress, and they acquired land in 2003. So there was land to grow. The land that was acquired in 2003 has only probably been built out, this is my guess, maybe not even the full third of that land has been built out. So there is again, I want to reemphasize this, the things that need to happen, in my opinion, for us to thrive again with residential growth are, we need a better national economy, we need a good local, we need unemployment in Nevada to drop, we need a good economy, and we still have plenty of land. So go ahead and hit that last part. And I just noted, was there a causal relationship? I think there is. So this last one, go ahead and bring it all up. So better national economy. When I was putting this together, I was thinking to myself, if we want to talk about residential real estate to keep it healthy, one thing we do want to do, as I was doing the economy part, is interest rates. If interest rates go sky high, that's really, really going to affect our ability to sell houses. We do have a high percentage here in Mesquite that come and buy with cash, but you're still going to have, it'll still be devastating if we see large jumps in interest rates. That obviously, as I talk about the national economy as a whole, that is part of it. That's part of that formula. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Lower state and local unemployment for jobs, economic development, diversifying the employment base, continuing to really go after the retirees, okay, the baby boomers, that huge segment that's going to hit retirement age. Good mix of housing options, variety of densities available. Some people don't want a single-family detached home, 2,000 square feet on a 1-acre lot. They don't want that. They want to live in a condo or they want to live in a townhome. We've had tremendous success here in Mesquite selling townhome subdivisions. The biggest subdivision in Mesquite, single subdivision, standalone, is the Sunset Green subdivision. 700 units there, and I think 95% of them are townhomes, Commonwealth townhomes. So making sure we have a good diversity of housing options. Infrastructure. For the most part, Mesquite has good infrastructure. I mean, there are always improvements we can make. We have good parks, we have good roads, we have good access on and off the freeway. We just have, in general, I guess we could talk about it. We have affordable things like water and power and sewer. Obviously, those are open to discussions, but in comparison, we have fairly decent infrastructure. Positive, friendly local government environment. You can't grow, you can't build houses, you can't do things, businesses and so forth, unless you've got that. And for the most part, I think right now that we have a fairly decent, I hate to say pro-growth, but positive for growth local government. Increased services and businesses relocating to Mesquite, that is a big one. And it goes to diversifying and encourage energy efficient construction. That is a big one for a lot of people, a lot of younger people, and even older people. I mean, I interact with people all the time that are interested in what's my footprint and what, recycling and so forth. So efficiency is another big thing to help encourage residential development. Go ahead. And obviously some of these things we can influence and control, some things we can partially, and some things we just can't. So some of this is out of our hands. We as much as we might contribute, we can't control Nevada's overall economy. Just one last slide. Go ahead and bring that up. So what's the future of Mesquite's residential housing sector? Tried to break it down. Again, crystal ball time. Short term, residential resale volume seems healthy. Residential resale price is more affordable than it was 7 years ago, obviously. And new residential construction volume varies, but prices, they do seem to be somewhat stable and reasonable, again, in comparison to what they were 7, 8, 9 years ago. The medium term, so a couple of questions. How many baby boomers are going to make the decision to retire in the next few years? The economy has had an effect on them. A lot of, fewer of them are making the decision to actually retire right now. They're holding off and waiting. What kind of economic development will take place in the next 5 years? What kinds of jobs will they bring? Service sector versus manufacturing. That will have a huge effect on residential housing growth. Okay? Long term, I mean, as we start talking about 10, 15 years down the road, who knows? I mean, do you think that the leaders in 1986 who went to Congress and had them pass the Mesquite Lands Act had any idea from the 1,200,000 people, 1,100 people that lived in Mesquite at that time? Do you think they could see forward and see golf courses and resorts and some of the beautiful subdivisions and housing that we have available, the hospital? Who knows what 20 years holds from now? I mean, That really is crystal ball times.